this video we're going to be reviewing Sabre and I's 7.5 kilometer long track that was conducted on Friday the 26th of June 2026. Now the purpose of these reviews is to provide evidence of the claim that Sabre can do that distance that I have stated. So this all started back when I was looking to see how far my dog can actually track, and I set out a goal to see if we can hit a 10 kilometer long track. And along that journey we've had milestones. First was 2 kilometers, then we hit the 3, then we hit the 5, and now we have successfully completed the 7.5 kilometer long track. Now all these tracks are conducted under double blind conditions, meaning I have no idea where the track is and only can utilize my dog's tracking ability in order to get me to the end of the track. So one, trying to figure out how far my dog can track, and two, also starting to put a standard on these claims that people make. So whenever I post a video of Sabre and I successfully completing one of these longer distance track, I'm inundated by other people all around the world saying, hey, they can track further, they know someone who's tracked further, and dogs can track well into the double digits. And my response has always been, cool, that's awesome. Do you have any proof? And I hear crickets. I don't hear anything back from them. They might even have, or on the odd occasion they do get back and say, yeah, I've got an overlay. And I'm just like, look, for those two people who've been around the tracking world long enough, you would have come across some tall stories out there about the ability that some handlers and their dogs say they have. And I'm not saying it's not true or it is true. I'm just saying I would like to increase the standard of evidence provided. So if you're going to make extraordinary claims about how far your dog can track, I think that should be backed up by extraordinary evidence. Okay, and I'm mainly talking about having your tracks filmed and uploaded, an unedited record, video record of your dog's tracking attempt, as well as a corresponding overlay of that specific track. And you'll see on this video we're about to review that I have the overlay, and I'll put a pin, and that pin will follow wherever the dog is on the track. So you at home can verify if what I'm saying is actually true. Think too much in the past, we've just sort of had a belief or a way of people tell you their dog can do it, and if you ask for any evidence, they say, oh, just trust me. And I know from experience, there's a lot of tall stories out there, so I'm just trying to improve the standard of evidence to people who make those bold claims. So next time you hear someone say, oh, my dog can track a 24-hour-old track, 40 kilometers, the person hopped in a car and drove 5 kilometers of that track and then got out and my dog kept following it, you'd be able to now say, look, can you prove that? Because there are a lot of tall stories out there. Anyway, that's just a bit of a background of why I'm doing this and this video. So this video is track that Sabre and I just done. It is 7.5 kilometers. That's what the remit was for the track layer, and I said I'll give you a 40-minute head start. So the track was actually aged 42 minutes. It was done double light conditions, light winds, clear sky, and yeah, I think without further ado, let's kick over to the video and we'll review it and see how we go. All right, here we go. So as you can see in this video, you got in the top right hand corner the overlay. The red line is the dog's track and the blue line is the path that a track layer went. As well as that, you'll see a meter window. So we're starting at 0, and this window is from 0 to 100. When we got 0 to 1,000. Once we pass 1,000 meter mark, it will then go from 1,000 to 2,000, just to give you guys at home a bit of an understanding of where we are in terms of the track. So that red dot that you see on that overlay, that will follow where Sabre and I are on the track. So you can follow along at home, see where we are, and yeah, just check and verify that what I'm saying I can do, we can do. So we start off the track. Sabre obviously is no stranger to starts, and I'm very confident what she's telling me is the actual track. So I guess the purpose for this is not so much for entertainment. It is gonna, look, I understand a lot of people won't watch this, especially an hour and 19 minutes of tracking, but it's more so for record keeping purposes only. And if you do want to watch it all and you get something out of it, great. But I understand it is a lot for people to ask. So there'll probably be portions in this video where I'll be quite silent and just watching the video with you guys, and there'll be portions where I'll see something of note and I will comment on it. But the main thing is just to have proof that what I say I do, I can actually do. So as you see here, the red dot started moving along the track path and we're just cruising along. So talk about dislocations, a state forest, a soft pine plantation. Never anyone here, it's great. The only trouble that we do have is its location. It is also a working cattle adjustment, which means there's cattle being adjusted here, and they can come into play sometimes. And for those people who have watched the reel I posted, yeah, we'll have a run in with these cattle around the 1,000 metre mark. So keep a lookout for that. Other than that though, the dog's doing his thing. So for those of you who have come to my workshops, there's rules of tracking I usually tell beginners, and it's like, never be at the end of your lead, never run behind your dog. And as you can see here, I'm doing all those wrong things. And what I will say in those circumstances, to be able to break the rules, you first got to have to learn the rules to begin with. And once you have a solid foundation in that, then you can look to start bending those rules. But when you're starting out, it's important that you have the fundamentals and you understand how not to stuff your dog up, how not to confuse your dog, and we have these rules in place. So the reason why we don't at the end of the lead is that when the dog inevitably stops on the track, we have the ability to let the lead out under tension in order before we start moving our feet. I spent so long now behind Sabre, I know when she's tracking versus when she isn't. So that rule no longer applies. I'm able to bend those rules to match what the situation is. Another thing is jogging. Running behind your dog. I always say, do not run behind your dog, because it is going to only lead to overshot tracks. It's unsafe, and you're not going to be as accurate, okay? But for this track, I had to make a conscious decision, as usually on the short tracks, I like to have a little bit of lead tension down the line. A taut lead is a lead that you can communicate well with. But when you're pushing out longer distances, I've got to keep in mind what is the effect that's going to have on Sabre when you extend distances. So if I'm putting a little bit of pressure on the dog, if it's 500 metre track, that's fine. But once you times that by 15, so that's what I did, 15 500 metre tracks, every little bit of weight extra that dog's going to have to carry is going to fatigue your dog. And that was something I was very conscious of during this track, that Sabre's fatigue levels need to be managed, because that's the last thing you want, is a fatigued dog on the track. So you'll see a lot of the time I'm just jogging to try and keep as little as leash pressure on her as I can. And her tracking gait, her tracking pace is at a canter. So she's not typical, IGP, slow, methodical. This is operational style tracking. It's pragmatic, it is practical, it is the way you use your dog to find people, both in a military and police sense, okay? There's no rules out here. It's what is going to best work for you and your dog in this environment. Okay. So we're going to hit our first corner now. We're going to go into the forest. Now, whenever I'm in the forest, I notice Sabre's tracking ability and intensity picks up 10, 20%. I'll put that down to the canopy providing an added level of protection to that path the track lay has walked on. When it's out in the open, the track is exposed to more of the elements, wind, UV, sunlight. So it's a little bit harder for the dog to follow compared to when we go under the canopy. So I'm always enjoying the under canopy tracking in order to, well, I just get a better result. So we'll talk about now the logistical challenges that you have when laying a track of this distance. So this area where we're tracking has very limited, if not 99% of it, has no mobile phone reception. So with the track layer, that's the only person that's out here, and they're 7.5 kilometers away, and I don't know where they are. So you see, when I get my phone out, I need to keep a distance. We have systems in place should I fail the track and I cannot communicate to the track layer. You'll see a lot throughout this video, the track layer trying to communicate me with the radio, and it's just static. So we've got systems in place. Should I take too long, the track layer has a kill switch where they will stop waiting and make their way back to the car. In this case, it was 2 hours from the time they finished the track. If they hadn't heard from me for 2 hours once they finished track, they were instructed to make their way back to the vehicle, and then we will sort it out then. You've got to have these contingencies in place, because in this environment, if I get injured, if the track layer gets injured, if my dog gets injured, we need to have a fail-safe way should communication not be able to be had. And on this track, we had 2 radios. We had a long-range radio with like an extended antenna, and another, I think, a 5-watt radio. So, but you could see here, it's a very dense forest, and depending on where you are in relation to your track layer, it might still not work. So that's why I got to keep an eye on the distance that I've traveled. And that's why you look at my phone from time to time, just to make sure, have an idea of where I am in order to not get lost, in the sense of if I need to let the track layer know where I am, if in case of an emergency. But anyway, we're coming up to our first major corner. Another challenge with these sorts of tracks is for the track layers, trying to ensure that you have enough space to lay the total distance and not cross over your previous track. So that's something that they got to be cognizant of. And that is one of the things I've been blessed with, is a willing and eager track layer that's happy to do these sorts of distances. So it's all well and good getting a track layer to go 500 meters, get a track layer to walk 7.5 Ks. Like I always say, imagine if someone told you that, oh, for breakfast we're going to have to walk 7.5 kilometers to go get our morning coffee. You'd be like, what? That's way too far. Like, you wouldn't do it. You definitely drive that distance. So to find someone who's willing to do this and to do it with a smile on their face means a world for me as a handler, to have someone that is willing to do that, because not many people would. And that just allows me to be able to test Sabre and I and see how far we can actually push it. So it's been 10 minutes of the track, and we're just coming up to 1,000 meters soon. So you saw there, at times, like, I swear this track layer was weaving in and out of these trees, because that's all I did. There would even be a nice corridor, like a nice potential straight line, but as you'll see here, I never just got to a chance to set in and relax. I'm constantly slaloming, that's the word, weaving in and out of these bloody trees. And sometimes you have to, the choice is to, instead of going around, just drop your lead and catch it on the other side. So you'll see me a few times do that, and sometimes you add the risk when you do that you don't get there to the other side in time, and you end up having to chase after your lead. And this is very hard ground too. Like the ground is super uneven here. Like it was a challenge just to maintain your footing. But that's a part of it. But there's just these things you have to go through. So I want you to see, every time you see, like what I'm looking for as a handler here is any indication that a dog is on the track. So I know that Sabre, she makes my job very easy here. Like she is only going to move forward if the track is there. And if you have a dog like that, you can trust to that degree. It makes tracks like this possible. So I know the track, Sabre wouldn't pull like this unless that was the track, it was the driving impetus. And anytime you see Sabre jump over a log, go over a fence, under a fence, down a ravine, it's all indications to me that we're on the right path, and that gives me confidence that I'm not just following the wind, okay? She is working with intent, with purpose, and we can move forward. And to me, another great thing is that Sabre finds this act of tracking intrinsically rewarding in itself. Like she doesn't need to be rewarded because this is her reward, just being in here. She's not looking for me. She's not getting low motivation. So long as there's a human over there, there will be motivation for it. So I wonder if you can see up ahead, see these little white figures in the distance between the trees there? I'm thinking now this is the cattle that I heard about. So I'm now starting to second guess and saying, has this last portion of the track all been cattle from their stomped ground that they've done? Because don't forget, your dog is following a combination of ground disturbed odor as well as human odor. So now when you come across something like a herd of cattle, imagine the amount of ground disturbed odor that a cow would leave behind as they walk. Okay, 600-700 kilo beast, they're going to stomp the ground, releasing a lot of those scent chemicals from the crushed grass. And I'm trying to now rush and run past the cattle because I see them on the move, and I'm like, oh no, I might as well get this on camera. But deep down I'm like, great, this is the direction of travel. I was traveling in that direction. So now, yeah, and Sabre's intensity's changed just as we kick over to the 1,000 meter point. I'm now tracking blind. It feels like for the last 1,000 meters I was confident. Now I've hit a hurdle, and in these times I'm having to think what to do. Then I come back to my training. Line travel, ease of access. So we've come to this clearing. It's like a 4-way cattle route between, like, it's 4 separate forests here. It's the intersection of the path that goes through them all. And I'm watching Sabre's tracking behaviour. Is she jumping around a lot, or she got back on a specific single track? And she's tracking right now. I'm thinking, yeah, she is on a specific track here. She's not darting around like she had done in previous long distance tracks. She's just nailed the actual true track or the track layout. And I'm just like, oh, brilliant, how good's this? Because I know from experience that when we did come across cattle before, she was very erratic in her path. And she'd track for a bit and jump over. It's like we were tracking for multiple offenders. That's what I likened it to previously when we were tracking past a group of cattle. So anyway, I'm actually shocked a little bit. I'm like, wow, okay, we passed that hurdle and now we're moving on ahead. I'm like, brilliant. So we're going along. I see a old cottage up ahead. I'm like, I've never seen this here before. And so this forest has lots of little surprises like this. Now, this is like the second little farmer's cottage I've stumbled across. And I always think, who would have lived here? Crazy to think someone would have lived here back in the day. And they just at one point said, it's no longer viable to stay here, let's move out. But you'll see as we move ahead, it's obviously run down, hasn't been lived in years, but still pretty cool. You think someone, if you're homeless, probably you would go, maybe I'll just shack up here for a bit. But it is a state forest too, so you're going to have forestry workers come around and probably move you on if you were to live here. But it's always interesting to find these new little Easter eggs scattered amongst the forest. So, but yeah, back to the tracking. Sabre's totally blitzed past and forgotten about that cattle, and so have I. I've now just gone to the back of my head. I know we're no longer being affected by that. So that was really good to see. So you'll see throughout the video, I've got my other handheld camera that I like to use. I find the quality on that other one a lot better than the GoPro, but the GoPro has the ability so you can go hands-free. I'm wearing a chest-mounted rig here, and that's what's capturing the footage you're watching now. I guess the good thing about the cattle being here is that they do keep the grass maintained. So it's not overgrowing, it's easy to walk through, and I have been to state forests where they don't have cattle and it becomes a nightmare to try and push through. Thicket and lantana just take over, and you might have a huge amount of forest area but very little workable actual space. So it's a double-edged sword. You take the good with the bad. The good is that you have a beautiful tracking environment. The bad is sometimes you run into the cattle. So anyway, we're just making our way past this cottage, and we had a corner here. And we're cruising along at a very nice pace. So next from this, after this track, we're going to go push the 10,000 meter track. And things we would need to consider is the track layer only was waiting around 10 minutes before I found him at the end of the track. So the last thing we want is a situation where we catch up to the track layer even before they hit the designated distance that they are near track. So this was, we said we aged everything up to 5,000 meters at 30 minutes. And we decided to do this one at 40 minutes age before we even start. And by the time I got started, it was actually at 42 minutes. For the 10K, it's going to be a minimum of an hour, just to give the track layer the ability to get in a position before I reach him at the end of the track. We estimate the track to lay a 10-kilometer track in this environment. It's going to be about around 2 hours to lay that track. So it should give him about 20 minutes downtime at the end of the track for the 10K one, if all things go well. And as you can see in this track, there was no majors. Like, this is a lot more straightforward track than the 5K. The 5K was a bit of a nightmare. Oh, and I've lost the yeah, this is the risk of letting your lead go, is that things like that can happen. And the last thing I want to do as a handler is to call my dog back, like say stop or here, or recall my dog when it's on the track. So I have to double time and make sure I pick up that lead with the most minimal amount of fuss involved. Yeah, so I was talking about the 10K setup. So yeah, the track's going to be a minimum age of an hour for the 10 kilometer. And that's just so the dog can, or the track layer can get to the end before we reach them with our dog in. Because we're traveling at quite a pace here. You'll see for the majority of it, 89% I'm at a jog. And the track layer is just walking. So yeah, that's a consideration that we have to take into account. And I think Sabre's now getting more accustomed to these longer distance tracks. It's the it's always a gamble. You don't know until you do know, but she has understanding, like, hey, the track's going to go longer now than what we used to, because before this year, our long track was 1,500 metres, but even before that, the most of the people sit around the 500,000 metre mark once they get serious into tracking, and that's fine for them. But to then start progressing the distances out, it has to be done in this progressive way, because the dog might go, hey, I'm doing this, and the first few, I reckon that's what Sabre was doing, especially around the 5K one. The dog's like, hey, this is going longer than what I'm used to. So, but now, she hasn't skipped a beat. She's like on point, on task, focused, but you also notice now that we've moved into the open area again, and notice the intensity start to slow down. So this is the tough time of the track. This is the grind, I call it. That I think a dog's having to work harder, and a little bit of uncertainty creeps into you as a handler. Like, what are we doing? Like, are we on the track? And through experience, though, I've learned that this is what happens, and not to panic. But this is what can happen on your track. You try and stay out of your head as much as possible, because that's another thing that can ruin a track for you. You don't trust your dog, you trust yourself, and 9 times out of 10, that will lead you down the wrong path. But yeah, so we're cruising along this leg of the track, and I'm looking forward to getting back into the canopied forest area. But when that would be, I had no idea. Just had to keep with my dog. Long as it's given me its tracking indicators, I'm happily moving forward. The last thing I want to see is my dog turn around and go back the way it came. And we had a lot of those times during our last 5K track. Fortunately for this track, there wasn't really any of that. There was one little portion which I thought she was doing that in, and then she didn't continue on with that. So another thing that I'm looking for as a tracking handler is any physical signs of the track. So things like footprints, scuffed earth, anything like that to give me more evidence that we're doing the right thing. Obviously, it's not going to be the main way we're going to find the person at a track, but that plus the dog's indication gives me more confidence. So paying attention to your surroundings, seeing if there's any parts of the track that go through soft sand, mud, dirt, any sort of signs of in long grass. You can sometimes see depressions where the track layer has crushed the grass. Anything like that helps give you confidence. And if you've got confidence, I feel like that translates and communicates its way down the lead, and the dog's happy to continue on. So I'm probably looking here for any sort of crushed ground, footprint. I can't remember if I saw one there, but at various points on the track, I did see signs like that, which just helped confirm to me that we're on the right path. Because right now, my bearings are gone. I don't know what way's up, what way's down. I don't know where I am in relation to this forest. Even though I have spent a lot of time here, when you're behind a dog, your window of focus shrinks, okay? You become very tunnel vision. And time distorts, distances distort, location distorts, and you don't really have a solid bearing of where you are in relation to known locations. So we've tracked 25 minutes now. We're between the 2,000 and 3,000 metre mark. So it's about a third of the track time that we have done. So another thing that I take into consideration on these tracks is my dog's fatigue levels and hydration. And I'm constantly reading my dog's energy levels to assess what she needs. So she's a clever girl though. She'll take opportunities, because it has been raining lots here. There is lots of moisture in the ground, puddles, streams, dams. But also I've noticed that she likes to snack on fresh cow manure as a little pick-me-up throughout the track. And here's another thing where I say rules can be broken, but you first got to learn the rules. Typically, if we were beginning, I say don't let your dog just self-satisfy on that fresh cow poo. It's a bad habit, because you don't want your dog thinking that you can do that every time it finds one. But in this situation here, I have a level of understanding, and I bend the rule to suit the situation that we find ourselves in. I understand that those cow patties probably have a bit of moisture in them, and typically Sabre wouldn't do that, but she's worked bloody hard, and now I'm having to weigh up whether that is of a benefit to us. And here I'm like, yeah, if that's what you need to keep going, and you see one, so long as it's not taking us off our path, then by all means have a snack. If that helps you, keep going. And then I'm hoping that we come across a broad water source, be it a dam or a river, that she can have a proper cool down in. I do have with me a dog bowl, classical dog bowl, and water in my bag. Okay, so here, a fence. Dog made a conscious effort to go on that fence. That's huge information for me as a handler that the track is there. The dog wouldn't have done that unless the track layer had either gone up to the fence or crossed into this new paddock. So I start this new section as same as I would have as the start of the track. I'll let the dog give me the direction of travel first. And you see here, I think we overshot the corner. So I'm waiting away. Sabre's a pro though. Look, she knows what to do. She knows where to go. She's like, this way. She casts herself right. She says nothing there. So she's discounted that area. Now she's come back and given me huge confirmation that this is the right path to follow. So I'm at the end of the lead. I'm letting the dog work. I'm looking at the environment that we're in. It's quite an open environment. So being at the end of the lead, great. It's not going to get tangled amongst branches and tree stumps and trees. So, but in the open again. So you see here, I'm holding the lead with a finger and thumb. That's it. There's very little lead pressure on her as we're going through, because I don't want to fatigue her unnecessarily. Going up to half an hour now of tracking. And you can see here that there's no ambiguity in what the dog's doing. So anyone who'd be like, oh, you knew the path, or you have a predetermined destination, you know what your tracking points are, and you're just going from there. No, the dog's leading me. I'm not leading the dog. If that was the case, then you'd see me constantly stopping and lead checking the dog. At no point do you see me drag the dog away and put it into an area where I want it to track. This is all self-directed tracking from the dog, and I'm just using my lead as confirmation before I move off. That's the thing. I think I got sent a overlay from someone. I'll put it up here so you can have a look. 4-hour-old track, 5 kilometers long, but the path was suspiciously too perfect. Like, if you zoom in on these track here, you'll see that I'm not on the track 100% the whole time. I'm close to it, but there's portions where you'll see coming up where I dart off the actual track, and for some reason Sabre's got a wind to something else, but then she's come back to the track. So this is the importance. I think she's having a little snack there. Yeah, see, as I said, she had a little snack. Not the end of the world. It helps her. Let her go. So anyway, what I was talking about just then is that this is the importance of having both an overlay as well as the corresponding footage for that overlay if you're making extraordinary claims. I'm sure people have tracked over 10 kilometers. Yeah, that is something that's very doable, but if all it takes is someone to say they've done it and then people believe that, I think we are living in an age now where we have the ability to verify. This is a simple setup. It's a GoPro. I have a battery pack in my backpack and a cable so the battery doesn't die. So that excuse that I had received that, oh, my battery will run out if I did my usual 10K track. I'm like, yeah, well, look at, this is problems that can be solved. Like, it's not an impossible situation where your battery will run out. Like, you can have a battery pack. If you are making these claims, I think everyone who can make these claims should endeavor to back them up. Otherwise, anyone can just say, I can do it. And the current standard has been, yeah, trust me, bro. And I'm setting a new standard that if the person doesn't have the ability to back it up with footage, yeah, maybe take it with a grain of salt, as I do. So I would love in the future to this become just the standard operating procedure for people who want to show their training, show what the dog's capable of in order to make best practice. So we can see what you're claiming is verifiable, it's true, and we can see that with our very own eyes and be the judge for ourselves. Yeah, it's always very precarious going over barbed wire, especially when it's a high. Oh, and I dropped the lead again. Yeah. So you see here that Sabre goes back across the fence line again and then back under it again later on. It's just like this could have been a situation where the track layer has walked along the fence line and the scent has blown from one side to another. So I want confirmation now that the track definitely goes under that fence, on the other side of that fence, before I commit, because it's a pain in the ass, to be honest, going over a barbed wire fence when you're wearing all this gear, you got a tracking lead. So I waited and I say, okay, we'll continue on. If we go back that way again, well, that's going to give me more information that the track most likely does go over that fence. Or if it doesn't, I'm glad I didn't go over. So this is how we use that tracking line for confirmation purposes. And I just didn't blindly rush across that fence. And now I'm glad I didn't go back over, because I'm confident that wasn't the track on the other side, because we've now given tracking indications far away from that location. Yeah, beautiful. So anytime a dog does something extraordinary, goes and it goes above and beyond, down a ravine, through a riverbed and up, the dog wouldn't do that unless the track was there. And I believe in that portion there, I could see a footprint in the wet mud. So confidence back to full, dog's working great, and I'm cruising along now in the 3,000 to 4,000 meter range. So coming up to halfway. And for me, mentally, it's getting a lot easier than when I first started. I used to think 1,500 meters was long. And I'm like, oh, that's a huge track. Now, I do like 4 of them. There was 4 1,500 meter tracks in this attempt. So it's funny, once you push past your boundaries, the mental game of it becomes a lot easier. And I'm not like 1,500 meter track, that's a warm up now. And this is the superpower that doing these long distances gives you as a handler, as a dog team. So you're able to break the mold and what you thought was once possible. For too long, people have even been stopping at 1,200 meters throughout all the different man trailing schools of, all the different companies out there. Like 1,200 meters is at max. And I had an epiphany. It's like, why? Why is that the max? And a lot of, and they went down the other route. They went down the route of adding age to the track. And that's cool. That's a different aspect of challenge when you add that to a track. But to me, I think time is a very abstract concept, especially when different environments place such a different impact on the actual track compared to distance. Because this location, 5,000 meters today is going to be the same as 5,000 meters tomorrow. But an hour-old track today is going to be completely different to an hour-old track tomorrow, because tomorrow the wind might be up, the sun might be out, there might be totally different environmental factors which don't standardize that measurement of testing. Whereas distance is all the same. Like 5,000 meters is 5,000 meters, no matter if it's hot, cold, sunny, wet, windy, dry, humid. It's all the same measurement. And for me, I can visualize 5,000 meters. I can't visualize 4 hours. That's okay, great. That's a challenge. I understand that. But I think this is the future. This is where tracking is going to go, because we can just keep pushing these distances out. And I'd love to get into a position where we have a cohort of handlers looking to push each other further and further in terms of what is capable, but they have to be able to back it up with evidence. Otherwise, I'm not going to believe it. Okay? Because it's too easy to say, oh, I did it. And it's easy to do an overlay. If you really wanted to be fraudulent, you could very easily just walk your track as the track layer, come back and walk your track as the dog. No, there's no even need to have a dog. And if all you're relying for evidence is an overlay, well, I think that's coming up very short as to what should be actual acceptable level of proof that you can do what you say you can do. All right, back under the fence. Now this time, she comes back under again. And that pissed me off. And I think the lead gets tangled here, and this is a bit of a mess. So anyway, it happens. My goal now is to not let it affect Sabre. But she's mucking around this fence line a lot, so I want to make sure what we do from here, I know is the track before I start moving away. But Sabre's such a pro. She's makes my job so easy. She's not going to do anything unless the actual track's there. She might get confused or, unsure in certain times. But look, again, she's gone under the fence again. And I'm like, okay, that's 2 bits of evidence, bits of data. That's where the track is. And there's no way I was going to step over this one, so I had to get on my hands and knees and crawl under. And I'm like, you better not go back under that fence again. And she doesn't, so she's good. So getting me up to the halfway point in the track. I might have a quick water break and come back. And we're back. So, yeah, at the halfway mark, cruising along, we're coming up to a big dam. I'm like, oh, beauty. Now, whether Sabre is gone off the track a little bit, knowing that there's a dam here, an opportunity to cool down, rehydrate, I tend to suspect she can tell when she's near a source of water, a big body of water like that. But the amazing thing is, she doesn't spend any time there. She just has what she needs and she gets right back on task, which tells me this actual activity is inherently self-rewarding for her. She just, this is her reward. Being able to move forward is the reinforcement that she gets from this task, which is really cool when you think about It means that I can just keep going and going, and she's not needing anything from me as a handler. Like, she's totally independent here. I'm just waiting for her to give me the go signal that we're on the track, and then I move. And from time to time, she'll pop off the track, check an area, not continue on with it, and then come back. Here we go, watching. Boom. So anytime you see your dog make a quick change in behavior with a head snap, good chance that's the actual track. So after that water break then at that dam, I wasn't exactly sure where the track was. I knew we were moving in the right vicinity, but with that body language cue, that head snap, I know where I'm standing on the track. There we are, right there. So it's interesting. I find that Sabre will work nose down for short periods of time and then come back up to a low nose position when we're on the path. And she'll check in periodically to the actual crushed ground, hit that scent, and then keep going forward with a little bit higher nose. And that's just her way she does the tracking. I think it's a very efficient way, because you can imagine a dog hoovering the ground the whole time. That's going to be burning some energy for the dog, and then that would fatigue them a lot. Where this style of operational tracking, the pragmatic approach, the practical approach, is what your dog needs to develop in order to track like this for long distances, okay? You will never see an IGP dog track this distance in these conditions. And conversely, you wouldn't see a pure scenting dog be able to be so accurate like this for this long and this consistency. This is why I'm a strong believer in the system that I preach, and is that teach your dog tracking first and foremost, okay? Once your dog has the foundations in tracking, I'm talking about starting them off in hard surface. If your dog can track on hard surface, the rest of the world becomes their oyster when it comes to tracking. And this is why all my dogs that I've had and I've developed track like this. Not one wasn't better than the other. Mammoth, my police dog, Muffin, my development dog, and now Sabre, all equal level of amazing tracking ability. And you'll see the next dog I have will be as good, if not better, than my 3 previous dogs. So, yeah, I struggle to see why you wouldn't train your dog this way if you're interested in tracking. So looking at the overlay, this track has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 hard corners, a whole bunch of curvy ones. Every obstacle, challenge that you can typically expect. We've had river crossings, we've had fences, we've had roads, we've had cattle, we've had distance, we've had time. It's and when you do long tracks like this, you're bound to come across all this and more. So having a dog that's resilient, that loves the task, is what's going to enable you. So I always talk about my workshops. Number one thing is get your dog enjoying this. If your dog can enjoy this task, the rest will come. The technique, the understanding will develop the more you do it. But the challenge is when you have a dog that doesn't really enjoy it, you're only going to get so far in this sport. And that's okay, but that's what you need to realise. If your dog can take it or leave it, well, it's going to be a battle. And I'd focus just getting your dog so excited that when it sees its tracking harness come out, it's all for it. And then your job as a handler becomes so much easier. Like, look at Sabre right now. The halfway point, probably 3,500 metres, and she's tracking just as strong as she did at the beginning. She wouldn't do that unless she was absolutely loving it. So that is cool to see. If you're still here, well, mate, that's good for you. Like, I know, like, tracking, it's a hard sell getting people to watch tracking, and I don't particularly push it. But if you're here, good for you. I appreciate hanging around this long. We're just past halfway, so I try and make it entertaining as possible. That's I think my goal. Just putting up a dry raw dog tracking video, you're going to be in for a hard time in terms of your views, and I know that an hour and 20 minutes of tracking is not everyone's cup of tea. That's why I try and do little things like putting the overlay on, getting you guys involved more so you have an understanding, as well as doing this play-by-play commentary. So maybe you can get a little bit further into the tracking video than you typically would. But yeah, you're pretty special if you're still here watching. But like I said, this is for record purposes mainly. If people get interested and find this entertaining, that's a secondary goal as well. But yeah, record purposes only is the main purpose of this. So oh, there's Sabre had another little snack on something.
Copy, we're catching up here, so hopefully, yeah, copy, just so you know, we just did 5, just past the 5k mark, but in actually on the straight line, it's probably only about 4.8k, so hopefully we get here before you reach the end.
Yeah, no, all good. Standing by.
Okay, so Sabre's located another water source. I think she can scent that. She can smell that there's a pool of a large enough body of water to get a drink. Whew, that was close. So picked up that lead and I dropped the radio. So annoying thing with this setup that you just have to deal with is the amount of equipment you need to take. As you can see here, I've got a backpack. Well, you can't see it, but I've got a backpack. I've got radios going left, right, and centre. Because the last thing you want to do is lose communication with that track layer should you end up getting lost and not having a way to let them know that you've given up on the track or you failed the track. But that's what you've got to have to do. And the more time we spend in this forest area, though, we're getting comfortable. We sort of get your bearings. So the 10,000 metres doesn't seem so daunting now. Whereas before, like 10,000 metres here, it was quite a daunting thought. But now we're getting more familiar, track layer as well, and it's becoming a little bit more achievable mentally than it had previously. Okay, we're crossing another road. This is actually the road we started on, as you can see there on the overlay. And now we're progressing to the next portion of the track. And something interesting happens up here, which don't know why, but I'll talk about it once we get there. But yeah, it was. I remember having a bit of a feeling of dread when it happened. But right now, I'm stoked. I'm like, yep, we're on the track. We're cruising nicely, jumping logs, beautiful. Another swampy area of water, cooling Sabre down. 51 minutes we've been tracking, so and it's getting on. And it's pretty amazing that the dog will find water and still remember where the track is. It's like she's trying to manage both her fatigue levels as well as keeping her eyes on the prize and not forgetting what we're doing out here. So that level of understanding is really interesting and cool to see as a handler. Here is the dread here. The dreaded backtrack. I was like, oh no. Why are we heading back the way we came? Please don't head back the way we came. And I'm like, trust your dog. That's what you've been taught to do, and that's what you do. But when these backtracks happen, there's got to be a certain distance you go before you call it and interfere with the dog. So I'm going, what? She's gone under the fence. Are you serious? This thing doesn't seem like a typical track layer thing to do. I was like, all right, well, are you sure? No, she's not sure. She's coming back down. Okay. Well, was that because I checked the lead and she's... I want to know now, what did you find so amazing that you had to come and go under this fence for? So I'm going to hit what we call a negative. There's a little path through here. I'm watching my dog. Any indication there? No. So the track doesn't go that way. Okay, sweet. Does the track go up ahead here? Maybe. Oh, no, she's gone back under the fence. So I'm thinking to myself, what is happening? Like, she first took me across the road, come back across the road, gone under the fence, went back over onto the road, come back under the fence, and now back onto the road again, and jumping this ravine. And now going back to that dam. So, like, okay, that's strange, but now we seem to be back on the track again. So what that little portion of track was all about, you don't know. You just have to run with it, so to speak, and let your dog do what it needs to do, but within reason. And that was very reasonable. We didn't get dragged off the track. We didn't go hundreds of meters, which we have done in the past. So, don't know why that happened. It's just one of these things that pops up from time to time. But what I was pleased with, it didn't last long. And we're back working productively on the actual track. And yeah, we're put that behind me now. But yeah, interesting why your dog does these things. Who knows? beautiful. Change of behaviour, change of environment, confirmations from the dog. I think I'm seeing footprints here as well. It's like beauty, confidence back up, and we're now progressing nicely. And no cattle. Like after that first run in, nothing, not a single other bit of game or livestock for the rest of the track. So, but you don't know that at the time. You're just praying you don't come across it. And I know they're usually in this area too. So, but they move, they migrate. So one day it's hard to know where they're going to be. You're just trying to hope for the best, really. You can't really plan to be away from them because it's a working cattle property as well as a state forest. So. And now we're about to go up a incline, a hill. And right now my feet are aching, my legs are sore. I've been running now, coming up to 6,500 meters probably. And yeah, I'm starting to get fatigued, but the good thing about a dog is it takes your mind off it. You don't really pay attention. You have portions where you're going hard and you're having to breathe in heavy, and other times you can recover. But it's definitely the fitter you are, the easier it is as well to stay clear of mind. And you do notice on these longer tracks, your mind does start to wander. You start thinking about all sorts of things. Well, for me, it's like, oh, how am I going to make a story out of this? How can I package this up? If we're going to make a reel out of this? And, you know, all these sort of things run through your mind, and then you quickly snap out. You're like, shit, I haven't finished this yet. Like, you need to stay focused, because that's all well and good, but if you don't get to the end of the track, that's going to be disappointing, because you've come so far now too. And the interesting thing is, like, this track was 7,680 meters long. I actually tracked with Sabre. I walked over 8,000 meters. Like, what was the distance that I actually did? I did over, a kilometer more, 8,650. So almost a kilometer more than the actual true track. So it is just going to happen, because you think every little extra meter you go off the track adds up by the time you've done 6, 7, 7.5 Ks. Gets me thinking, when we do, and that's if everything goes perfectly, which for 95%, 96% of this track, it has gone really smoothly. Makes me think, when we're doing the 10K track, that we need to leave a 10%, 10 to 15% tolerance on the actual distance. So if it's a 10K track, I have to be expected to actually, distance I cover with my dog, to be 11 to 12 Ks in actual distance covered. So it's good to know. Definitely doable in the right conditions like this. This is a beautiful tracking day too, so no reason why we can't. I actually thought, when we start getting past the 8K point, I was like, when's this going to end? Like, has the track leg gone to 10Ks? It's just a surprise. Like, another 2.5K, definitely doable. If the track leg did another 2.5K today, we would have got it. In terms of the dog's energy levels, my energy levels, it's very within our ability to do that. So it's going to be interesting when we punch out the 10 kilometers, the actual total distance that I'll cover. And then another thing is, like, the walk home. that's just as painful. I let Sabre off lead and we just cruised home. We had to go look for the track layers radio, which added another 40 or so minutes. We found it, but it's an easier walk home because you're successful compared to walking home unsuccessfully. But yeah, it's a lot of Ks you do in a short amount of time through rugged terrain. So I think a couple of days later, my legs are still sore. But hey, that's no rest for the wicked, and that's, you know, if you want to be pushing boundaries, these are the things that you got to do and accept. So you see on the map here, it's like a white dot, and I asked the tracker, what is that? He doesn't know. It turns out to be a marker point, a waypoint that you can add as a track layer. He doesn't know what happened. He didn't mean to do it. It didn't help me at all. I didn't see it till obviously after when he sent me his overlay. But does anyone know what the purpose of that is? If you could let me know in the comments, if anyone's still watching, that would be interesting to know. I don't see how I would use it. But notice what I do here. When I climb the fence, I go over to the hinge side, okay? So there's less weight being put on the hinges. If I was to climb the fence furthest away from the hinge side, the levering action would put a lot more stress on the actual hinge joint, as opposed to if you were to climb it closer to the hinge. Just something for those people who ever find themselves in that position and they don't want to wreck the fence to make the farmers or land carers angry. So for those who know this area, who've tracked here, that's why I run my tracking workshops. And this is quite a common area where we'll lay the track. It starts off in a native style forest and then transitions over to the pine forest too. So it's a really cool spot. I know this area quite well. Doesn't mean I know where the track goes, but I have been here a lot and it is familiar to me. Here's a transition now between the native gum style plantation, eucalyptus, into the pine plantation. And you'll see here there's nice corridors that a track layer could have walked down, but I think he has weeds in and out to make it a challenge, and you know, I understand that too. Here's Sabre having a little snack, a little pick-me-up before we progress again. And understanding is that I'm trying to keep my dog's welfare in mind as well. Light lead pressure, not so it's not having to drag my ass down the track, and if it needs to have a break to do something like that, by all means. There's a little bit of a downhill here, so I'm able to increase the pace. I'm sort of looking to chew as many meters into this track as well. So there's opportunities like this where it's just a clean run. But no, we had to go stop and do something. Where are we going? Was it a corner? Yeah, it's probably a corner. And now I'm bloody on the slalom action again. But hey, that all adds to the story and the enjoyment of it, I guess. If it was too easy, everyone would do it, and it wouldn't be such a cool experience. So that's all good. But at the time, you're just like, oh, come on. And you can see there's like mounds on the ground as well. So it's like constantly, your footing's never just staying standard. It's constantly having to adjust to little bumps and slips and knocks and trips. And yeah, it's quite a unique experience. Here's a beautiful, look how beautiful that is. I could do that all day. That's really nice. Nope, and there we go. But as a track layer, like you don't really know what's ahead of you a lot of the time, and it got us stuck on the 5,000 meter where we had to hit a wall, a literal wall of lantana. There's nowhere to go except through it. Fortunately for this time, there was none of that. There was always a way around it, but sometimes you might not be familiar with the area, and you're in a situation like that. And I'm glad he went through it, because it took me back to the days of my police dog handling career, where that was the norm. Like, criminals would become very desperate and do stuff like that all the time to try and evade capture. So it was very reminiscent of my times back in the dog unit. So it was cool to actually see that. Once was good. You know, if it happened on this track here, I would have done the same thing. I'll go where my dog wants to go, especially coming this far. So you notice here, I don't interfere, I don't cheerlead my dog. Sometimes I say to myself, a good dog, hopefully that sort of gives a telekinetic message to the dog, but I'm not constantly jabbering, good dog, yeah, excellent. I'm just sort of letting her work. She very rarely checks back into me. She knows that she's doing the right thing if we're moving forward. But now, I think that was a couple of stops to eat cow poo in a short period of time. I'm like, no, that's too much of that. Let's get back to work. So there we go. It's been over an hour. Over an hour and 9 minutes of tracking non-stop. I can feel I'm getting on I must be getting close. I check my phone, we're close to 7.5. Coming up to that point now, I'm like, oh, any seconds now, we're gonna be finished and celebrating. But that's, I was thinking that too soon. I still had about a K to go, and I was just like, oh, this is brutal. But my dog, what kept me going was my dog's confidence on the track and their task focus. I was like, oh, well, no, the dog's still wanting to go. The only thing I got in my head at one point, I was like, oh, maybe that was a proximity. We had a little proximity alert, and I was like, maybe we're just struggling to solve that problem. But that didn't last long, because the dog crossed the road and was like, yeah, no, there's nothing there. I was like, okay, I guess that was just, because the last thing you want to do is hit the proximity alert and get blown off the track and then be lost and off the track. So anyway, that wasn't what the case was. So still, I remember this was like, please end. So anytime you get too close to the end, you're looking forward to it. So it just goes to like, when it made me, doing this makes me appreciate the difficulty of actually finding a criminal that police force dog handlers have to go through. Because at least in my situation, I know there's a known end. There's definitely a track lay there. He's waiting for me. He's not trying to bug out or get picked up or try and trick me or fool me in any way other than just walking a track. So all those times and to all those dog handlers that get out there tracking in unknown circumstances and conditions, and having to do this without a known reward at the end, phew, that is mentally tough and fatiguing. So props to those handlers out there that are doing this for real. Doing these tracks just reminds me how difficult it actually is to utilise your dog in real world police settings where you're actually trying to find a criminal. Because imagine if you were trying to find a criminal here, right? This is the actual track. I'm tracking along. All the cops that were behind you would be like, this guy's tripping. Like, this dog handler has no idea what he's doing. He's just going for a massive walk. They'd all be dropped off behind you, and it's a very lonely place in these sorts of distances. You're like, when do I call it? When do I call this track? It's obviously gone so far now, and we're on the home stretch now. Over 7,000 metres of the track layers path we've covered, and yeah, when do you call it as a police dog handler? Because there's no radio communication between you and the the crim like it is with us in the track layer. So yeah, you can see the actual tough job they have, but that makes the find that much more sweeter. I remember finding criminals with your dog whilst tracking. It was the ultimate high because you couldn't believe it. You're like, no way that I've tracked all this distance. And you know, have I tracked a distance this long in the cops? Maybe. We don't have. I wish. That's one thing I wish. I wish I utilised the overlays, even though I wouldn't have a track layer overlay because it'd be a criminal. I wish I had my own overlays going just to see distances and record. And I wish all the dog handlers out there, find my time again. One thing I say is get a little GoPro for yourself and keep your footage. I would have loved to have all my police footage still, and it's now tucked away in some archive somewhere because it was a police bloody long camera. I'm probably not allowed to policy-wise, but who cares at the end of the day? Just it's a policy. I would love to have had all my tracks on footage for me to watch over and utilise now as in my dog tracking business. But anyway, that was neither here nor there now. So this is where I'm still seeing maybe a little idea of proximity. Because I'm now tracked over. I'm probably at like 8,000 metres. So I'm coming up to, you know, between 7.5 and 8 kilometres. And I'm like, track layer's going to be running somewhere. He's finished right near the dam, so Sabre can have a cool off at the end. I was like, this is what I'm thinking in my head. Oh, there's a footprint. Okay, well, maybe not there. Maybe just up ahead. I'm noticing my dog's energy, head's starting to pop up a bit more. Tracking for an hour and 15 minutes. Oh no, please don't tell me I've overshot and he's behind me. I'm trying to look around, use my own eyesight, I'm not getting anything. Sabre keeps wanting to go this way. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. But there, like that there was like a tracking indication. Okay, all right, oh, you know best. So if we go into that next forest here, I'm confident the track's still going this direction and not behind me. But we come back on the road again and we're like, oh, maybe not. This is all the mental game that you got to play with yourself inside your track. And you notice the track's starting to get a bit wobbly in terms of Sabre's indications. Down the middle of the road, really? I was like, okay, well.
What are you doing, Sabre? Okay, what's that?
Not moving till I get it. Indication. So I often talk about in more the advanced handlers that we can move our feet if the dog's working towards the track as well as when the dog hits the track. It takes some skill and nuance to differentiate the difference between your dog just walking around versus your dog working towards the actual track. So when your dog's working towards the actual track, their nose won't be on the ground. They'll be working with purpose to get to a certain path. That's what I'm saying, that critical time where you're looking for, you're in this window and you're looking for a change of behaviour, and that's where you see those head snaps. And that time, to recognise that, just takes time behind your dog. Another little rest break. The red line's gone walkabout, but it's in the vicinity of where we are. The red dot, I should say. That's hard. So putting that little red dot around the whole track is bloody labour intensive. So I think by the end here, I was just like, look, you get the gist. We're in that vicinity. I'm just going to move it from that point to that point. It doesn't follow automatically. I'm having to move it point to point, and watch where we are in the video. So that I hope you appreciate that, because that is labour intensive. So you might not look it, but it is. Okay, I think we're like, I'm getting confident, I'm getting excited now. We've seen a bit of increase in, as I say that, she comes and has another little snack. She's worked hard, I got to give her that. So, straight back onto it now, and her intensity's picked up a bit. I'm like, okay, I can't see anything still, we're going through some thick grass. Maybe I'm seeing some crushed grass as a possible track of the track layer. But mainly the dog's intensity is telling me something. And the distance that I know we're at, I'm sure it's got to be around here somewhere. Just seeing something, see movement, Sabre gets a bit spooked here. Watch this, watch this. Oh, who's that?
Hey!
Yes, great result.
Holy
guys.
moly!
Bloody
Hey?
7.5k track.
No, just give her love, mate. She shouldn't eat anyway. Just give her some big love. Good girl, Sabre.
And I hope you appreciate the video and the overlay.
Oh,
That's just proof. I'm making a claim. I can do that.
yeah,
Here
but
is
stop.
the evidence to.
we did it, bro. We did it.
Thanks, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.